And we want to welcome to the show the President of the New Zealand Police Association, Chris Cahill. Chris, thanks so much for joining us today.
Hey, kia ora.
Kia ora. As the public, we're getting such mixed messages that the incumbent government is talking about lots of ways they're supporting the police, 500 additional officers, more powers put in place, more feet on the street. And then we're getting this other message where we're hearing that the police aren't happy with how they're being treated financially or being offered financially, salary-wise and stuff. I want to play a story from 3 News with you, but just before we go there, do you want to speak to the kind of bigger picture first of all?
Yeah, well, I think that you've identified the bigger picture. There's a lot going on in the police space around demand, about the extra work that are required, the new laws that are coming in, the challenges that will prevent. That's one of the issues police officers have. They don't believe there's any recognition for that in the latest pay deal. It's not just about, inflation. It's about how the job's expanding.
Yeah. Let's have a look at this story together. You're actually in the story. I'm not going to play the bits that you're in. That'd be a bit blimmin' Inception, wouldn't it? Watching you, talking about you, then coming back and talking to you. But I'll just play a couple of clips. It's only about 2 minutes total, just to get a feel for what the news story is all about. Here we go.
Police officers are threatening to quit en masse after losing their long-running pay dispute with the government. The final arbitration ruling was released today and will see police officers accept a $5,000 pay rise backdated to November, along with a $1,500 lump sum payment. Senior political correspondent Jenna Lynch has the details.
Society's safety net fraying. Many police officers are feeling undervalued, burnt out, fed up, and today got a further kick in the guts. The government won its pay dispute with the force.
Did police...
Like that, we're not stopping to talk to Tiki, but that in and of itself, the government won. So when someone wins, that means someone loses, but we'll get to that at the end of this conversation.
Push the government hard enough to get the money that you needed to pay cops what they're worth?
I believe the government has given a really fair package for New Zealand Police to work with in offering what we did.
The Police Association had been locked in a standoff with the government. Final arbitration was the last step. Police officers legally cannot strike. The arbitrator chose the government's offer over the unions.
Then you come on to have a lovely little chat, so we'll leave that one just there and just jump forward to after you speak and have about another 60 seconds. So we've got a full synopsis or snapshot of what we're talking about. Here we go.
The officers get a $5,000 pay rise backdated to November with an extra 4% backdated to the start of this month. There was also a $1,500 lump sum payment and overtime pay of time and a half.
Do you think it's fair?
Well, I think New Zealand Police is a rewarding place to work. Our job is exciting. We know that as we do more advertising, people are wanting to join, and they join for more than just pay.
Would you join police today on that salary?
Absolutely. My son has just joined in the last few weeks.
One officer told 3 News the government can always find money for stuff they want. Ukraine, nurses, teachers, national supporting police is just hot air. Wow. Another said, I'm at a loss for words. I feel completely disheartened and not at all valued. I will be looking for another job outside of the police. While a third told us the morale is already low and it just took another hit. The officer warned it would lead to people quitting en masse.
Resignations en masse. Are you scared that you might see that?
Well, surely that's a concern. We don't want people to leave. We believe that the offer is a fair offer in the circumstances that New Zealand finds itself in.
A leaked email from Police Commissioner Andrew Costa to staff suggests one way of easing the pressure would be to allow greater flexibility around the rate of superannuation contributions. He says they're considering letting officers stop paying their mandatory 7.5% contribution.
And then you go on to, there you are in your lovely face, talk about that means they're basically paying for their own pay increase, which seems ridiculous. So now that we've looked at it, can we just get an idea as to what kind of money we're talking? Like, what's the overall budget? Like, what's in the budget? What does the government spend on police total?
Yeah, look, it's a lot. It's getting up towards $2.7 billion a year. So it is a lot of money. But it probably should be recognised as a percentage of GDP, percentage of government spending. That's actually dropped over the last few years. It hasn't gone up. Right. But it is a lot of money.
Yeah, it is a lot of money, but if you were a landlord, for example, this government would be giving you more than the total budget they spend on police back. So as one of the officers said, if they want to find money to give to Ukraine, I personally, I don't think that's a bad thing either, but they seem to be able to find money for their passion projects the police aren't one of them that would appear from this government. Is that fair?
Yeah, and I think that's spot on. That's what we said in our submissions. I mean, one of the key submissions police made is that if our position was accepted, police wouldn't have the budget for it, and they might have to consider laying further police employees or non-sworn staff off. But, that's the same. That's a choice governments make. They chose to give landlords $2.9 billion of tax relief. They chose to introduce $14.2 billion of tax relief to the general public as well. And I'm sure some people like that, but those choices they made, and they could equally make the choice to fund the payoff we wanted.
Yeah, and that's the thing we've been saying, Chris, constantly, is that people who can hold this government account, journalists with access, need to keep going, well, let's talk about your choices. You're choosing here, you're not choosing there. The story from 3 News talked about police are threatened to quit en masse, but within the story, it seems that they were saying one officer has said that people will commit en masse. It's a slightly different perspective on each of those. What's the feedback you're getting from police when it comes to the pay negotiations?
Yeah, look, one of the things that did come out, the idea that we've had mass exodus to Australia isn't actually the case. There's a bit of blurred around how many have actually gone, and it certainly seems to have picked up. But you're still not talking, hundreds by any stretch of the imagination. You're talking tens. But anecdotally, we're being told by a lot of officers they're waiting to see what this pay offer delivered before they make an informed decision. And if it doesn't deliver substantial change, then Australia is an option they'll be looking at. So I think we just have to monitor that over the next few months to see how many vote with their feet. Without a doubt, Australia is an attractive option. Policing is actually pretty similar in the majority of Australian states. I think Northern Territory probably a lot more challenging, but they do earn up to 30% more pretty much straight away before we talk allowances.
And forgive me for my ignorance, but wasn't there a better pay offer previously and this one's not as good?
Yeah, not anymore. Yeah, originally last year there was what we call the public service pay adjustment with some additions on it. Then when the new government came in, they made what we call a lowball offer. But no, they did up that offer, and so the offer that's now been accepted by the arbitrator is a better offer than that. And look, okay, it's not the worst offer police have ever had, but it has to be looked in the context of a few things.
The other thing, I guess, looking from the outside in, Chris, is the acting police commissioner, as was featured in that story, I guess seems to be kind of going, yes, the government's done well, but it sounds like what you're saying and maybe the feedback from the actual boots on the street are saying not so good. I mean, was it Andrew Costa, I believe, that we saw?
Jim McSkimming, the deputy commissioner.
The acting, you're right. Okay, the deputy police commissioner. Are they fighting on behalf of the police, or are they agents of the government at this stage with this negotiation?
Very much agents of the government, without a doubt. They've got a set of directions from the government, from Public Service Commission, Treasury, and they follow that line. And that's one of the frustrations for us, that we're in a room negotiating, and really we're not negotiating with the organ grinder who is really back in those government agencies. We'd like to see them in the room in future.
So would it be fair to therefore say the top cop in New Zealand is arguing for the government, not for the police officers that they are a top cop for?
Yes, I think from our perspective, it's fair. I mean, I'm sure he would like to get more money, but he has to toe the government line, and the government line is around fiscal prudence, shall we say. He's had to accept what PSC and Treasury have said, and he's then presented that line in negotiations. But I think it's important just to note, what are the issues with the pay round that a lot of people will look at it and say it doesn't seem that bad. Yep. And one of the things that makes it look good is the 4% that we will get next July, when inflation is forecast to be a lot lower than 4%, as low as 2% now. One, we're living in the hope that economists predict something right for a change.
Yeah.
But we don't dispute that outlier year is a good offer. The problem is that the previous offer doesn't reflect how far officers fell behind when inflation was 7% and 6%. They fell in those 2 years more than 6% behind inflation. So they think, we should have at least been able to keep even with that. The second issue is there's no recognition here above inflation for the increasing demands. A lot more, if we look at just two issues, mental health, 70% increase in mental health call-outs in the last 5 years, 70% pretty much the same for family harm incidents. You've got doubling of gang members. You've got all the new legislation, the complex role they have to do, the dangers now. They believe there should have been an uplift for that, and there's no uplift in this position.
Last question, and actually it's a question that you've just reminded me of. I read something yesterday, I think, that said that the budget for the cops on the street, the new initiative that the government's bringing out, they're getting the money from the family harm budget. Can you speak to that? Is that accurate, inaccurate? Is there a bit of some truth to it?
I think, no, it's probably a bit confusing. I think what they're probably saying is they hope to free up staff from tending all these family harm incidents to be available for beat. Technically, the budget for them is new money. The problem is it's going to take at least 2 years for that to flow through, and in the meantime, staff have to be found from somewhere else. So it's shifting priorities around.
Gotcha. Now that they have the pay offer in front of them, you said that lots of the police officers were probably waiting to see what would happen. Is your expectations that we will lose a number of police over this pay offer, or do you think it's been a hard negotiation, we'll now get on with life?
Well, look, a lot of it we'll have to wait and see. Certainly, if social media is to be believed, we will lose a lot of police officers. But talking and doing, they're two different things. It's a big move to uproot, move to Australia, leave your whānau. So we'll just have to see how that unfolds. But I certainly acknowledge that a lot of them with big mortgages, high rents, are still under pressure.
That is the president of the New Zealand Police Association, Chris Cahill. Chris, thanks so much for sparing us a few minutes today.
Thanks very much.